Joining us now on the show, Cory Taylor. She's with the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. We are in a new month. It is March, but March has been a year of, or been known for different weather patterns. And with that, some serious tornadoes have been a history, or part of our history here in the state of Michigan. With that now, Cory, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good. It's been beautiful the last couple of days, though. So to come on and talk about tornadoes, you're like, wait a minute. We're enjoying the sunshine and the ice melting and the snow melting.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a whirlwind of weather over the last few days. We've been out actually filming for our presentation later in the month of March. But also it's very strange thinking about how 50 years ago, actually, this month is the 50th anniversary of the 1976, or the 45th anniversary. Math is not my strong suit. 45th anniversary of the 1976 West Bloomfield tornado. It's an F4 tornado that moved through West Bloomfield, and it's very strange, kind of the juxtaposition of the beautiful weather that we're having now, and then thinking about that, and almost reliving the history of it, because it happened in the lifetime of so many that are still around and still living. So it is very strange.
So tell us more about the tornado and how the Historical Society has documented it, but also the process to try to share that story with today's generation.
So when I started at the Historical Society in 2019, I actually had no idea that the tornado came through. When we did our March open house in 2019, that was the first that I had heard of it. And I had kind of been so wrapped up in learning my job and kind of, learning the ropes and meeting people, that when I finally sat down and looked at the topic of that open house, I just couldn't fathom, that it had happened in 1976, something like that. I just thought that it had happened so long ago, but it didn't. And so we have a decent collection of memorabilia and artifacts representing the tornado. And we have kind of pieces of buildings that have fallen apart that we have in our collection, and that we're hoping to have on exhibit in our gallery. But our collection mainly focuses on the memories of the people that survived, and the people who the families of those who were lost. There were, there was one person that died and 55 people that were injured. And so we kind of document not only the history of it, but we also document the people, and their stories.
It really is about the people, and as someone who I've covered countless tornadoes, so many of the interviews talk about the noise. It's sounding like a freight train. And did you hear those stories as well? What stories stuck out with you?
So I haven't personally heard the stories. Like I said, I was kind of wrapped up in learning my new job. So unfortunately, I didn't get to hear many of those stories. But you're right. It's the sounds, I think, in a lot of these kind of disasters. It's the things that I was hearing from people who survived Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Sandy. Those are the things that they remember. It's the sounds and kind of it's almost like when you hear a certain song, you're reminded of something, or you smell something and you're reminded of a memory or an experience. So you're definitely right. It's the sound that I think sticks with people the most, and I think is the biggest point to a memory.
Cory Taylor with us here on the MegaCast. She's the with the Office and Activities Coordinator for the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. And Cory, you're pretty young, but what's this mean to you to document, but to hear these stories about our history? And why are they important now, so many years later?
So they're important now for the same reason that, documenting the pandemic is important, because moving forward, you can't stay stuck in the past, right? You always have to continually move forward, because if you don't, then nothing changes, nothing happens. But you have to be reminded of things that happened in the past, good, bad, and everything in between, to inform how you move forward, so that if something happens that is repeated, say we have another tornado, we can learn from what we did, on a practicality level. If we can learn from what happened in 1976 and, use it to protect the people of the future, that would be spectacular. But also things like the pandemic, if we learn from the mistakes that we've made, over the last year, and we learn from the things that we've done correctly, that have protected people, then if this ever happens again, and I hope that it doesn't, but if it does, then we can learn from those things and help us, perform better in the future.
Yeah, and one of the incredible things right now, documenting history in the pandemic with today's technology and so many more voices being heard, can really reshape how history is retold. As someone who has studied history, what is your perspective or your thoughts about some of the early history? Because we know that it's really told through a lens of those that were educated, which typically was the white male.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. And, there's that old saying, history's written by the victors. And the victors were mainly privileged white males. And I think it's very important that, and it's heartbreaking to me that it's taken this long to right these wrongs, but everybody's voice matters. And I think that people, documenting the experiences and the stories and the voices of everyone, not just the privileged educated few, but everybody in the world, is very important. And having those voices documented gives a more accurate picture of history. Because right now, when you look at even 100 years ago, even 150 years ago, there's voices that are missing. There's pieces of that puzzle that's missing, and we might not ever really fill those pieces in because those people are gone.
It's sometimes when you speak with some of the people that have lived through these events in life, it's getting them to talk about it, but also their stories. Mm-hmm. Some of them can relive it as if it happened just yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's so vivid in their minds.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that I think is my pull, is what pulls me into learning history and documenting it, because just talking about people who are passionate about something, or even war veterans who are so proud of their service, and to me those are the stories that that I like to hear, and I just hearing people be passionate about the things in their lives, and not wanting to boast about it, but just wanting to share their experiences and their stories. That's important to me.
Well, it's so great always talking to our good friends over at the Historical Society, but also I love to see the passion in the younger generation, because we need people such as yourself to help document and tell these stories. And you offer a fresh perspective as well. So Cory Taylor here with us on the MegaCast. Give us again. I have not had any coffee today, by the way. I've had no coffee, no Red Bull, no nothing.
Living dangerously, right?
I am. Oh my gosh, it's a hard habit to break, Cory. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I haven't had my coffee yet either. So the fact that I'm bringing your sentences together is a miracle.
Hey, so Cory, again, give us some information about the event coming up.
Sure. So we have several events happening in the month of March. March is going to be very busy for us at the Historical Society. So on March 14th, we have our monthly open house, and that's going to focus on the 1976 West Bloomfield tornado. We have some video footage that we're going to share. We're going to have a short presentation, but we mainly want to reiterate that we're collecting stories. So March's subject for our Collecting Memories campaign is the 1976 tornado. So if anybody out there has any stories or photos or memories that they want to share, you can submit those to us through our social media pages and through our website. And then later on in the month, we have a double header. So we have March 17th through the co-sponsored with the West Bloomfield Library is our Then and Now Our Four Communities virtual tour. So we have 4 different segments in a video that we're kind of highlighting the different historical places in the 4 communities that we serve, which are West Bloomfield, Kego Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake. And we have 4 different historians that kind of take us through the different places in those 4 communities and show pictures, historic photos, and then what they look like now, and the historic significance of those places in the cities or the communities. And then that same presentation is going to be given on Thursday, March 25th, co-sponsored with West Bloomfield Parks. So normally that would be a bus tour that we would do with parks, but because of COVID, we're just doing a virtual presentation. So we wanted to keep our community partnerships going strong in 2021. So we have our presentation with the library, and then again, our presentation the following week with parks.
Hey, Cory, before we let you go, we know that oftentimes you're viewing history through books and through media, which is, in a sense, virtual as well. So for people such as yourself and other historians, when you have to go virtual through the way you're presenting history to the public due to the pandemic, how have things changed in how you're trying to share that knowledge? Or is it, in a way, a little bit better for you too, because that's how you're getting the information?
That's a really great question. It actually the pandemic forced us to get creative a bit. And I think it was good in a way. The pandemic, not good, but going virtual for us was I think in a way a blessing in disguise. Because it forced us to kind of take a look at the bigger picture of how we were structuring our presentations and our events. And we realized that format was not going to translate through Zoom. And it was very little effort on our part, which was great because we're a volunteer-led organization. But it kind of forced us to create our own content, which is great for historic purposes and our archives, because then we have that content now that we can reuse later on or share at different times or reshare at another presentation or open house. So because Zoom allows you to record presentations, for some of our older presenters who, we want to save their memories and preserve their stories, and being able to record a live presentation is great on both parts, for our archive and future use, but then also for the presenter who might not have had that opportunity, to record their presentation at that moment. So it's allowed us to create a lot more content and get with the 21st century.
And we all have to adapt during the COVID-19 pandemic, and there are some silver linings out there. So you found one. Cory Taylor with us here on the MegaCast with the Greater West Bloomfield Historical Society. Always great talking to you and your team over there.
Thank you for having me.